Hello, guys. Welcome back to another exciting episode on the show. Control or be controlled. A podcast designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. And I remain your host, Darlington. Today's guest is Rebecca Mullen. Rebecca is the author of 6 Steps to Better Marriage. 6 Steps to Better Marriage Communication, and host of the podcast, Habits for Your Happily Ever After. Rebecca helps couples transform the way they communicate by focusing on the small, repeatable habits that create stronger relationships. Her work centers on helping couples move away from reactive patterns towards intentional connection, especially during moments of tension, disagreement, and emotional overwhelm. Through practical frameworks and stories that are relatable, real-life strategies as well, Rebecca shows couples that better communication isn't about avoiding conflicts. It's about learning how to navigate it with more understanding, patience, and connection. Our TEDx Talk explores how the stories we share around the dinner table can create peace and understanding within families, even when people have very different perspectives. Today, Rebecca is here to talk about communication, habits, conflicts, and the small changes that can create a lasting impact in relationship. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Darlington. I'm so pleased to be here with you.
Okay, Rebecca, thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed that introduction.
I did. Thank you for reminding people that it isn't about winning an argument or having those reactive patterns. It really is about slowing down and having the patience to look for how is my sweetheart trying to connect with me? When we ask that question, it really changes the flavor of any conflict.
Okay, so many couples struggle with the same communication patterns over and over again. So why do you think couples fall into reactive communication loop?
Well, I think it's kind of inherent in the question that you're asking, Darlington, that we as couples, the couples that I see in my practice and in my own marriage, we get in a reactive cycle. And those cycles are based on so many things in our past. And what we're trying to do, I always describe to people, it's like being on a merry-go-round. And you're just going around and around and around. And what you want to do is look for that off ramp so that you can stop the spin and find an exit strategy.
Okay, so tell us what is happening emotionally when couples move from trying to understand each other into defending themselves or trying to win an argument.
Right? Yeah, that's the key thing, right? I think when people are more concerned with being right than understanding their sweetheart, that's what begins to escalate that spin cycle. And I think if we can have a lot of compassion for people, because at an ancestral level, like when we think way back to our ancestors, if you didn't belong as part of the group and you were exorcised from the group, that really meant that you were going to die. You know, that the jungle or the desert or whatever natural environment it was, you were going to get eaten up or die because of thirst. And so we have this inbred need to be right so that we are not exorcised from the group. But here's where that's working against us today is we're not actually threatened if we are wrong. or if we're just misunderstood. The key to connection and belonging these days is asking the question, what is it about my sweetheart's point of view that I don't understand yet? And when we can ask that question, what is it I don't understand about my sweetheart's point of view? That slows us down and it makes connecting more important than the spin. Because, Darlington, when we get spun up, it's each of us, our fear is being triggered and we're like, afraid you don't understand me. So I get louder and I get bigger. And that makes my sweetheart afraid. And maybe their panic response is to freeze. That's what it is in my marriage. And my if I got frustrated, I would get bigger and louder and fight. And my husband would get smaller and freeze and say nothing. And then I would get infuriated because he wasn't engaging. And then he would get more frozen because I was getting angrier. And can you see how that spin in our cycle? We're not going to find a way out of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, you talk about intentional connection.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like in a real-time conflict when emotions are very, very high?
So I think intentional connection begins before the fight begins. So it's really hard when you've been triggered and you're upset. Like if I'm already yelling at my husband, it's hard for me to remember, oh yeah, I want to be connecting with you. But if during some other period of calm in our week, like maybe we're taking a Sunday afternoon picnic and we're relaxing, or we're taking a walk hand in hand, that's a great time to talk to your sweetheart about what do we want the value to be in our relationship? What do we want to have as our pattern? How do we want to treat each other? And when I ask couples those kinds of questions, I hear things like, we want to be kind to each other. We want to be patient. We want to be loving, right? So those intentions are easy to access when you're not in the middle of a conflict. And so being able to ground those intentions during conversations at another point in the week when you feel some connection is really important. Then, Darlington, if you can agree to have a pause button or some kind of, like I teach people this, the timeout signal, which is like I'm making a T, the letter T with my hands, just some kind of, let's take a break. Or maybe you wave at your partner and that means I surrender. I need a break. And then each person just takes a moment to self-reflect and fill their own cup. Like maybe you're just hungry or maybe you're feeling overwhelmed. And if you can just kind of take 3 slow, deep breaths, then you feel, okay, you're like, oh yeah, I love this person. I want to be connected to this person. The connection becomes more important than any one particular conflict. Does that answer your question? Where am I off base?
Yes. Thank you, Rebecca. So, what are some simple habits that couples can now practice daily that will have the biggest impact on improving their relationship?
A small habit that improves your relationship?
Yes.
Is that what you want me to talk about?
Yes.
Yes. So my favorite habit when people come into my office and they want to deepen the connection, they feel like things have kind of gone stale or, they're kind of living like roommates instead of like lovers. I'll ask them to just notice and tell me about the character of their hello and their goodbye. And if you have time, Darlington, I'll tell you a quick story of how my husband and I used this in our marriage. Do you have time for that?
All right.
Okay. So when our children were little, my husband was in graduate school, and so he was gone studying all the time. And I was at home with these two little babies, and I didn't have childcare for the work that I was doing at home for my job. So I just got up early while everybody was still sleeping, did my work, and then when the kids woke up, then I went into mom mode. And what that meant was that I was often really tired and often very overwhelmed. And so in the evenings when David would come home, I would often he'd walk in the door, I'd hand him a baby, and I would walk out the door to just go get some sanity of my own. And over time, David began to look kind of like he would walk in the door kind of sheepish, like he was walking on eggshells and he was afraid of breaking something. And he just looked scared when he walked in the door. And I thought, oh, he looks scared because every day this week I've met him at the door as if I were angry with him. And I wasn't angry with him. I was angry with our situation or frustrated or overwhelmed. And I was just dumping it on him instead of taking a moment to say, hello, David, you're my person, looking in his eyes and letting him know, I love you. I chose you. I'm so glad you're home. And then after that moment of connection, eye to eye with a hug and a kiss is over and completed, really only takes 20 or 30 seconds. Then I can say, I need you to take this kiddo because I got to go refill my tank by taking a walk outside. And I promised myself, Darlington, that I was going to do that for 30 days in a row. And I did it. Like every time I was so proud of myself that I was taking that time to look him in the eyes and say hello and say I was glad he was home. And do you think it made a difference?
Okay. Thank you so much for that wonderful story.
No, I wanted to help you. Like I wanted you to guess, did it make a difference? No, actually it didn't make a difference in my marriage because I had caused such deep wounds for doing it so long that even 30 days of looking him in the eye and giving him that respect, it didn't change anything. He still was coming in the house looking scared, like, who is my wife going to be today? So I continued my experiment and I stopped counting the number of days, but I wouldn't be surprised if I did that for 90 days, just kept my hello experiment going. And then one day my husband walked into the house with the look on his face of, I can't wait to see you, Rebecca. And that's when I knew that I had not only repaired the damage I'd done, but I had created this pattern for us where we always, always take that 20 or 30 seconds to say hello, to look in each other's eyes, and to say, you are my person, or some equivalent of that. Even if it isn't said out loud, it's just said with our energy. And what that does is it keeps the relationship connected. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. Thank you so much. So, I hope people can learn from your story. Okay.
Say that again.
So I hope people can learn from your story.
Yeah, I hope so, because I don't want other people to have that look of terror in their sweetheart's eyes.
Okay, but conflict is inevitable in every relationship, right?
Uh-huh.
So what separates a healthy conflict from a damaging conflict?
Oh, I love that question. What separates a healthy conflict from a damaging conflict? So John and Julie Gottman do all kinds of experiments with couples, and they have named the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And there are behaviors when we're having conflict that make the conflict negative, right? But there are also things that we can do to have conflict and be healthy. So one of the most damaging is contempt. If I'm having a conflict with you, but then I'm calling you names or diminishing you, like calling you stupid, or, oh, I can't even believe that you would think that. That's just like you to have such a stupid idea. That is contempt in a conflict. Now, that's very different than being able to look your partner in the eye when you're having a conflict and say, I hear your point and I disagree with you. I come at it with a different point of view. Do you see how I'm not name calling? I'm not diminishing my sweetheart when I do that. There's another one where, I can get defensive. And that's what causes those relationship negative cycles to spin, is if you come at me and like, say my husband said to me, hey, Rebecca, I can't seem to get your attention, and there's this banking issue that we need to solve, and I can't get your attention. Well, that is a potential conflict, right? And I could say, well, you're always chasing me down. You never give me enough time. I could get defensive and put up this wall that says, I'm stopping you. But if instead I say, you can't find a time to talk to me? Oh, okay, well, let's get something on the calendar, because I feel like you're always chasing me down right before I'm trying to leave for work, and it's just bad timing. So can you see how there's a difference between those 2 ways of dealing with conflict?
Yes. Thank you.
So conflict, you asked, what is healthy conflict? Healthy conflict is when you feel your sweetheart pressing on you, being able to stop, to pause, to take that deep breath and to say, what is it in this moment that could draw us further together? And what is keeping us apart? And then how can we address that together instead of as enemies?
Understood. So let's talk about your book. Your book focuses on 6 steps to better marriage communication.
Yes.
What is one step that you believe couples often overlook?
So my book, like you said, is 6 steps to better marriage communication. And I'll just quickly name the 6 steps if that's okay.
Okay.
Oh, the first step is to overcome fear. And we've touched on this a little bit today, like David is afraid that I won't sit still long enough to solve a problem with him. And so he chases me down right before I'm trying to get out the door. Overcoming fear is about stopping and thinking, what am I afraid of? Like, David feels like he's going to be alone handling that crisis. He wants me to be engaged with him, but he's afraid I'll leave it all in his lap. So when he can overcome his fear and realize, oh, Rebecca wants to do this with me, we just need to find a time. When our fears drag us into dirty conflicts, right? And when we can overcome them, then we do a better job connecting. The second step is about get clear. Oftentimes we don't know what we want in a relationship. We just know we want this person to make me happy. But a really clear desire, like, I want you to sit down and talk through this money problem with me, that's clarity, which leads to step 3, which is ask cleanly. we could talk at a different point about my clean ask formula, but most of us ask dirty. And that's what sends us into that negative cycle, is because our asks are not clean asks. They're often full of accusation or shame or a lack of clarity. And so that causes conflict. Step 4 is to beware conditions. Oftentimes we love each other conditionally. I'll love you if. I'll love you if you do the dishes. I'll love you if you buy me something. That's not a good, healthy way to communicate. And step 5, which is really about the question that you just asked me, step 5 is called affirm lovingly. And you asked me, what's one step from my book that couples often overlook? And it's this one, to affirm that you chose your sweetheart. Like, oftentimes people get married and then that's the last time they think about, I want this person to know I chose them. They are my person and I want them to feel chosen. So just those tiny little compliments like, hey, you look nice in those jeans, or thanks for always making coffee for both of us in the morning, or I love coming home to your face because I feel so relaxed when I'm with you. Those tiny little affirmations give so much juiciness to a relationship so that you can endure those drier moments when there is conflict. But if you have a lot of affirmation in your marriage, you have set yourself up to be able to handle a little bit more conflict. And then the final step in my book is to build boundaries. Sometimes you just have to let your sweetheart know, no, you can't treat me that way. Thanks for asking about my book.
Okay. So, your TEDx Talks explores how stories shared at the dinner table can create peace, even when family members have very different viewpoints.
Yeah.
What can couples learn from that?
Well, in our family, I have 2 children, and my daughter became a vegetarian when she was 12 years old. She just kept seeing animals not treated well in the world. And she said, I'm going to be a vegetarian. And she has never looked back. But my son is a bow hunter, and he fills our freezer with animals that he harvests with his bow. So you can imagine that those 2 people sitting at the same table to eat a meal had very different feelings about what that meal should be. But we just began to tell stories. We listened to my daughter's stories about animal rights and why she loved animals and why she felt like animals deserved as much kindness as people. And then we listened to my son's stories about how close a relationship he had to forge with an animal to get close enough to get a shot with his bow. And that there was what my children learned in listening to each other's stories was they had a lot of places where they could agree. They both agreed that animals were to be respected. They both agreed that animals needed to be treated well. And so what ended up happening is that because they listened to each other's stories, when they were out in the world away from our home, they would tell each other's stories to defend each other. You know, when someone was eating a hamburger, that we were at this party and this woman was eating a hamburger, but she found out that my son was a hunter and she said, oh, that's horrible to be a hunter. And it was my daughter who spoke up on behalf of her brother and said, isn't that a hamburger you're eating? Where do you think that hamburger came from? You know, and this woman said, well, from the store. And so it just in being able to tell each other's stories when they came from far apart, they found ways to connect with someone who on the surface believed very differently than they did. And so I guess, Darlington, I guess I'm thinking all your listeners probably encounter someone who thinks differently than they do. And so how can a story find a bridge between their differences. That's what I would encourage people to look for, the ways that someone else's story provides some commonality between them.
All right, Rebecca, here is my final question for you.
Yes.
If a couple listening today wants to make one change that could improve their relationship immediately, what would you recommend they start doing?
Yes. If a couple wants to strengthen their relationship, I'm going to go back to that hello habit. I'm not even asking you to change the way you say hello. I'm just asking you to notice the way that you say hello. Notice the way you feel in your body when you say hello to your sweetheart. When you say hello to your sweetheart, are you kind of saying hello, but you're also scrolling on your phone, and so they don't have your full attention? When you say hello to your sweetheart, are you too busy to get up and give them a hug? Just by noticing the character of your hello, you're going to get a glimpse of how connected you will be to that person 5 or 10 years from now. That's my habit that I would recommend.
All right, Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and for reminding us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us and for reminding us that strong relationships are built through small intentional choices made every day. The message shows that better communication isn't about having a perfect marriage. It's about creating habits that help couples understand each other, reconnect, and grow together. So for those that would like to learn more about Rebecca Mullen and your book, 6 Steps to Better Marriage Communication, how can they do that?
Yeah, they can go to my website, which is RebeccaMullenCoaching.com. They can find me on Instagram or TikTok. They can go to Amazon and order the book, 6 Steps to Better Marriage Communication. Or if you're a podcast listener and you like listening, my book is available on Spotify. Search for the title, 6 Steps to Better Marriage Communication by Rebecca Mullen, and you can listen on Spotify.
Okay, once again, thank you so much for coming. And thank you to all my audience as well. Make sure to check out Rebecca as well. I'm sure this book is a must-have for every couple, because conflict is very, very, very inevitable in marriages. And one of the bedrock of a better marriage is good communication. So make sure to check out our book, check out our work, and share this episode to someone out there who might be having difficulties in their marriage, or someone that you want to help so that they don't have difficulties in their marriage. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming to my show.
Thank you for having me, Darlington. It was a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.